Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
In the name of God, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Your Excellency President of the General Assembly, Philemon Young, Your Excellency Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, ladies and gentlemen, it is a good omen that I am addressing you today while we celebrate a glorious national occasion for the Yemeni people, which is the 26th of September, when our Yemeni people made history 62 years ago by overthrowing the Imamite racist regime and proclaiming the Republic. This is an opportunity to reiterate our congratulations to the people of Yemen everywhere and to express our pride and appreciation of the courage of those young men and women and opinion leaders who challenge every year on this day, this glorious day, the Houthi oppression machine supported by the Iranian regime. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Yemen remains committed to just and comprehensive peace, in line with national, regional, and international terms of reference. It is, however, necessary to strengthen its position to face any other choices in light of the ongoing Houthi militias' escalation on the local and regional levels and their threat to international navigation. To prevent the expansion and prolongation of this escalation, there is an urgent need for a collective approach to support the government of Yemen and to reinforce its institutional capabilities to protect its territorial waters and to secure all of its national territory. Without addressing these needs and without implementing the relevant international resolutions prohibiting the flow of Iranian weapons and drying up the funding sources, these militias will not engage in any efforts to achieve just and comprehensive peace, and they will not refrain from blackmailing the regional and international communities. History teaches us that leniency with the enemies of peace leads to the most heinous wars, to the most complex and costly ones. Despite the truce approved by the government of Yemen in April 2022, these militias persisted in their military breaches and in their grave violations of human rights and of national and international laws. In October 2022, Houthi militias bombarded the oil exportation ports in the governorates of Hadramaut and Shabwa, thus depriving the Yemeni people from the needed revenues to pay salaries and basic services, which exacerbated the humanitarian plight and led to an unprecedented devaluation of our national currency. Recently, the government suspended its decision to transfer the headquarters of banks from Sana'a, which is under the control of the militias, to the temporary capital Aden, heeding the call of the UN and international community to de-escalate, provided that the Houthis engage in serious talks to address the economic crisis and to revive the peace efforts in line with the roadmap mediated by our brethren in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Sultanate of Oman. Despite all the above, the militias hijacked 3 planes owned by Yemeni airlines. They attacked the Safir oil facility in the governorate of Ma'rib with drones. They issued racist orders and laws to nominate their affiliates in specific public function positions, especially in the judiciary. This suggests that they will be taking more oppressive measures against public freedoms and civic work. This ongoing pattern of reckless escalation in response to the de-escalation initiatives requires the international community to take firm policies and push these militias towards the choice of peace in line with international resolutions, particularly Resolution 2216, instead of their senseless escalation. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, 4 months ago, terrorist Houthi militias arrested dozens of UN personnel, to be added to the thousands of innocent men, women, children, elderly who disappeared in their prisons years ago. Particularly activist Mohammed Qahtan included in a Security Council resolution. There is a widespread belief that the United Nations is responsible for giving these militias the opportunity to kidnap this unprecedented number of relief workers and NGO staff, as well as activists and civil society leaders, by not heeding the call of the Yemeni government to transfer their headquarters from Sana'a to the temporary capital, Aden. By not taking seriously these militias and by keeping their headquarters in Sana'a, the United Nations unintentionally enabled these terrorists to take their personnel and assets as hostages and to use them as a bargaining chip to blackmail the international community and to achieve negotiation concessions that cannot be accepted under any circumstances. This ongoing situation cannot be defended nor justified. The presence of UN headquarters in Sana'a emboldens these militias that are designated on terrorist lists, and it endangers relief workers and human rights defenders. Hence, the need to reconsider these policies and measures immediately. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Houthi militias, with their ongoing terrorist attacks on international maritime navigation in the Red Sea and the surrounding waterways, prove that they represent a growing threat not only to Yemen, as some used to believe, but also to the stability of the region as a whole, and to the secure flow of international trade, which exceeds trillions of dollars. Today, they are reinforcing their position as the first rebel group in history having used ballistic missiles and drones against civilian commercial vessels. Late last month, Houthi militias hit the Sonian tanker, which was carrying 1 million barrels of crude oil, causing fires which could have led to one of the worst oil spills in history before the vessel was salvaged by the international coalition. This is not the first such incident caused by these militias. These militias boasted having sunk 2 vessels previously. They also hindered for years the efforts to save the decaying sulfur tanker, which was carrying similar amounts of crude oil. It proves that their terrorist activities will remain an ongoing threat to maritime navigation. Ladies and gentlemen, for years the Yemeni economy has been facing complex challenges, but the terrorist Houthi attacks on the oil facilities deepened the funding crisis and deprived the people and government of Yemen from necessary revenues to pay salaries and provide services. The economic war waged by these militias are part of a larger hostile strategy aiming at weakening the ability of the government to provide basic services and to pay public service salaries, thus aggravating the humanitarian crisis for more than 14 million Yemenis. Therefore, the international community should seriously consider the devastating effects of these terrorist acts and to provide the vital infrastructure to defend maritime transportation vessels in Yemeni ports, to support the right of the Yemenis and of the Yemeni government to benefit from their resources and improve their living conditions. Protecting the arteries of the Yemeni economy is necessary not only to recover and rebuild our future, but it is important also for the stability of the region and for the security of energy on the long term. Therefore, we reiterate our call to the international community to provide immediate comprehensive support to address the devastating humanitarian conditions and to lay the foundations for a long-term economic recovery. This should include not only immediate humanitarian assistance to alleviate sufferings, but it should also include accountability mechanisms, especially in the regions under the Houthi control. It also requires greater investments in infrastructure, healthcare, education, and sustainable development. It requires building the national capacities to curb the impacts of climate change, which has left hundreds of victims and displaced thousands within the last 2 months. Yemen's recovery is not only a national matter, it is a regional and international need. The stability of Yemen is decisive to safeguard peace and stability in the region and trade routes in the Arabian and Red Seas, as well as surrounding waterways, including the Suez Canal. We have appreciated international support in the past, and we will keep thanking you for shouldering your moral responsibilities. We also thank the coalition to restore legitimacy led by the KSA and the UAE to meet the aspirations of the Yemeni people to stability, peace and prosperity, and provide the resources we need to rebuild our institutions and our social fabric. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the Arab region is facing today a challenging test in building the state and in joining the civilizational progress. However, every time the countries of the region achieve a true transformation towards development, peace and prosperity, and towards empowering their people to exercise their political, economic and social rights, they are met with evil forces which intervene with their destructive agendas, emboldened by the international leniency towards these rogue groups and their supporters. The outcome of this battle between the forces of peace and the axis of evil will determine who will survive, develop on this part of the world. It will determine whether the region will be dragged into more chaos, civil wars, hegemony, weapons, oppression, and underdevelopment. The road to peace goes through the forces of moderation in the region, led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which has been defending the international resolutions and which extended a helping hand by hosting millions of those fleeing wars and armed conflicts. Therefore, we are grateful for these countries, and the world should depend on them to lay the foundations of peace and stability and to maximize our benefits from their economic and social development. Ladies and gentlemen, we should end the false rhetorics concerning the issue of Yemen, especially those minimizing the role of Iran and of their weapons and proxies in destabilizing Yemen, the region, and the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the brutal Israeli war on the Palestinian people should cease immediately. This is the first step to achieve peace and to eliminate Iran's proxies, which are escalating the situation in the region. Iran has been manipulating the just Palestinian cause, and this did not come from a vacuum. It stems from a history of blackmailing and of propaganda, only leading to undermining the peace process and reversing the gains of the Palestinian people and their right to establish a fully sovereign independent state. The same holds true for Yemen, ending the plight. And as is the case for Yemen, ending the plight of the Palestinian people should be based on implementing the international resolutions, especially the Arab Peace Initiative. And as is the case for both Yemen and Palestine, the only way to deter the wanton Israeli aggression on Lebanon will be through a firm stance from the international community and through the unity of all the Lebanese and their independent decision and the non-interference in their internal affairs so that the Lebanese state can recover the choice of peace and war. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to recall that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights quotes, I quote, "the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all the members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world." End of quotation. Today, these values are undermined, and as are the ethics and national and international norms, with the grave violations perpetrated by leaders of al-Qaeda and Daesh and by the Houthi militias, promising the world more devastation. Thank you, and may the peace of God be upon you.